Hey everyone, I'm Jake, and this is the making of Hex. Hex is a 2D action shooter I made for the Minimalist Gam Jam. The jam was 3 days long with no set theme, but a limitation to only use geometric shapes. Though I managed to create what I feel is a fun and somewhat polished experience, this wasn't my first initial idea, so let's get into it. I started out by brainstorming all the different ideas that I could make for the jam, which was quite challenging considering there was no set theme. I didn't want to make another platformer because I recently made one for the Geo Jam 21, but with that being said, I thought I'd be a little bit ambitious and attempt to make a Metroidvania, which I thought would be a good idea. I started by opening up Trello and planned out all the tasks I had to complete. I jumped straight into Unity and got started with simple player movement, which was nice and easy to implement. I then added player abilities, which included a double jump, a dash, and a jetpack mechanic. I then modified my code to allow the player to start off with the simple movement and then unlock abilities when going through a trigger. Even though I was keen to make a small Metroidvania, the more I worked on it, the more I knew I wouldn't be able to get it done in time. So I scrapped that idea and went back to the drawing board. I decided on a single screen top-down shooter. The player would be able to move around in all directions as well as dash and shoot towards the mouse cursor. Enemies would also spawn within the confines of the wall and simply just chase the player. I then thought of what could have been a pretty interesting mechanic, where the player only has a single bullet that they'd have to pick up after shooting, but I decided not to go with that idea as it was too similar to Gut Whale by Stuffed Wombat. I started off day 2 strong by getting simple player movement up and running. I achieved this in the same way I did player movement in my tutorial, which I'll link down below if you want to check it out. I then got stuck into a basic weapon system, which was pretty simple to get up and going. I just created the gun game object as a child of the player, then got it rotating on its Z axis to face the mouse cursor. Shooting was pretty easy to code into the game after that as well. Next up on my to-do list was to create an enemy spawner. I set up a spawn rate and a time between waves value along with an array of transforms the enemy could spawn at. And in my spawn function, I chose a random position from that array to instantiate the enemies at. I set up health and damage, and just like that, I had the simple foundations of a small top-down shooter. But up until this point, there wasn't really a hook for the game. It wasn't really interesting. And then I thought, what if I combined a fast-paced top-down shooter with Super Hexagon? Super excited about this idea, I got started on making the hexagon mechanic. For this one, I started off by trying it out myself, but didn't really get a result I liked. So I ended up using Bracky's 10-minute jam video as a reference point. I created a hexagon spawner, which was similar to the enemy spawner, and in hindsight, I probably could have used the same script for both, but I was just too excited to get this feature in. And this was the result. I then made sure the hexagons dealt damage to the player upon contact, just for some added challenge. I then added score for when the player kills an enemy, as well as a score multiplier for every time a hexagon shrinks to the middle of the screen, to allow for some big high scores. I also spent some time polishing up the game, adding some particles, as well as a slow-mo effect for when the player dies. And after this point in the jam, I got so invested I forgot to screen share a lot of my progress, but this was the end result. I added a few more enemy types, audio, and did some more polishing up, including a little main menu. I finished the game and submitted it with a few hours to spare. There were a few more things I would have liked to add into Hex, but I didn't want to burn myself out, and at the time of recording this, the jam and voting period is well over, and to my surprise, I placed first in the jam, which is awesome. If you want to play Hex, I'll leave a link in the description below. All comments and feedback would really be appreciated. But that's all for this video. If you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, and maybe subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.